So if Iran invaded Israel, what do we do?
Well, they're not going to. That is like saying Iran is about to invade Mars. I mean, they have nothing. They don't have an army or navy or air force. The Israelis have 300 nuclear weapons. Nobody would touch them. But no, if it were in our national security interests, and Congress says, you know, this is very, very important, we have to declare war. But presidents don't have the authority to go to war. You go to the Congress and find out if they want a war, do the people want the war? But it's totally unnecessary. I mean, that to me is an impossible situation for the Iranians to invade Israel.
This is what you said about Israel. Israel's dependent on us, you know, for economic means. We send them billions of dollars, and then they depend on us. So they say, well, you know, we don't like Iran. You go fight our battles. You bomb Iran for us, and they become dependent on us. Who in Israel is saying, go bomb Iran for us?
Well, I don't know the individuals, but we know that their leaderships, you read it in the papers on a daily, you know, about Israel. The government of Israel encourages Americans to go into Iran, and people. I don't think that's top secret that the government of Israel.
That the government of Israel wants us to bomb Iran?
I don't think there's a doubt about that they've encouraged us to do that. And of course, the neoconservatives have been anxious to do that for a long time.
Would you cut off all foreign aid to Israel?
Absolutely. But remember, the Arabs would get cut off too, and the Arabs get 3 times as much aid altogether than Israel. Well, why make Israel so dependent? Why do they give up their sovereignty? They can't defend their borders without coming to us. If they want a peace treaty, they have to ask us permission. They can't. We interfere when the Arab leagues make overtures to them. So I would say that we have made them second-class citizens. I think they would take much better care of themselves. They would have their national sovereignty back, and I think they would be required then to have a stronger economy because they would have to pay their own bills.
You talked about September 11th in one of the Republican debates back in May, and this is what you said.
They don't come here to attack us because we're rich and we're free. They come and they attack us because we're over there.
Because we're over there. And then you added this on Tuesday. But Al-Qaeda has determination. The determination comes from being provoked. How have we, the United States, provoked Al-Qaeda?
Well, read what the ringleader says. Read what Osama bin Laden said. We had a base, you know, in Saudi Arabia. That was an affront to their religion. That was blasphemy as far as they were concerned. We were bombing Iraq for 10 years. We've interfered in Iran since 1953. Our CIA has been involved in the overthrow of their governments. We're right now in the process of overthrowing that nation. We side more with Israel than Pakistan, and they get annoyed with this. How would we react if we were on their land? If they were on our land, we would be very annoyed and we'd be fighting mad.
So under your doctrine, if we did not have troops in the Middle East, they would leave us alone?
Not immediately, because they'd have to believe us, but what would happen is the incentive for Osama bin Laden to recruit suicide terrorists would disappear. Once we left Lebanon in the early 80s, the French and Americans and Israelis left Lebanon, suicide terrorism virtually stopped, just like that. But while we were there, that was suicide terrorism killed our Marines because we were in Lebanon. So we have to understand that. We have to understand how we would react if some country did to us exactly what we do to them. And then we might have a better understanding of their motivation, why somebody would join the Al-Qaeda. Since we've been over there, Al-Qaeda has more members now than they did before 9/11. They probably had a couple hundred before 9/11.
It sounds like you think that the problem is Al-Qaeda. The problem is the United States, not Al-Qaeda.
No, it's both. It's both. Al-Qaeda becomes the violent. It's sort of like if you step in a snake pit and you get bit, you know, who caused the trouble? Because you stepped in the snake pit or because snakes bite you? So I think you have to understand both. But why produce the incentive for these violent, vicious thugs to want to come here and kill us?
Do you think there's an ideological struggle that Islamic fascists want to take over the world?
Well, I think some, just like the West has wanted to do that all the time. Look at the way they look at us. I mean, we're in 130 countries. We have 700 bases. How do you think they propose that to their people and say, what does America want to do? Are they over here to be nice to us and teach us how to be good Democrats?
So you see a moral equivalency between the West and Islamic fascism?
for some people, some radicals on each side, that when we impose our will with force by a few number of people, not the American people, I'm talking the people who have hijacked our foreign policy, the people who took George Bush's foreign policy of a humble foreign policy and turned it into one of nation building, which he complained about.
The president himself?
The president himself has changed the policy. You know, I mean, I like the program he ran on, and that's what I defend. And, but all of a sudden, and it didn't change after 9/11, it changed at the first meeting of the cabinet, according to Paul O'Neill. He says immediately it was on the table. When were we going to attack Iraq?
You mentioned on September 11th, a former aide of yours, Eric De Niro, said this, quote, "When September 11th happened, he just completely changed," talking about you. One of the first things he said was not how awful the tragedy was. It was, quote, "Now we're going to get big government." Was that your reaction?
Well, I'm surprised you would quote somebody like that. He's a disgruntled former employee who literally was put out. But yes, I thought that...
He said he quit because he disagreed with you.
Yeah, no, the point is, Randolph Bourne says war is the health of the state. I believe that statement. When you have war, whether it's a war against drugs, war against terrorism, war overseas, the mentality of the people changed, and they're more willing to sacrifice their liberties in order to be safe and secure. So yes, right after 9/11, my reaction was, you know, it's going to be a lot tougher selling liberty. But I'm pleasantly surprised that I'm still in the business of selling liberty and the Constitution, and there's still a lot of enthusiasm for it. So all the American people don't agree that we have to have the nanny state and have the government taking care of it. So I have been encouraged. I might have been too pessimistic immediately after 9/11, because in a way it has caused this reaction and this uprising in this country and say enough is enough. We don't need more Patriot Acts. We don't need more surveillance of our people. We don't need national ID cards. We don't need the suspension of habeas corpus. What we need is more freedom. So in one way I was pessimistic, but in another way, now I'm more encouraged with the reception I'm getting with this message.
And we actually go further. You said this: abolish the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Central Intelligence Agency, and dismantle every other agency except the Justice and Defense Departments. And then you went on. If elected president, Paul says he would abolish public schools, welfare, Social Security, and farm subsidies.
Okay. You may have picked that up 20 or 30 years ago. It's not part of my platform. Matter of fact, I'm the only one that really has an interim program. Technically, a lot of those functions aren't constitutional. But the point is I'm not against the FBI investigation and doing a proper role, but I'm against the FBI spying on people like Martin Luther King. I'm against the CIA fighting secret wars and overthrowing government and interfering.
Would you abolish them?
I would not abolish all their functions, but
What about public schools? Are you
okay,
still...
but let's go with the CIA. They're involved in torture. I would abolish that, yes, but I wouldn't abolish their right and our requirement to accumulate intelligence for national defense purposes. That's quite different.
But if you eliminate the income tax, you take away